Okay.
All right, welcome to the Whitman Finance Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, July 21st. It's 7 o'clock. We're broadcasting to you from the Zoom platform. Just a quick review of the agenda. We do have a lot to cover. We are glad to have with us members of the Whitman-Hanson Regional High School District and school committee members. Welcome one and all to our meeting. We will take our agenda out of order so we can let you guys get back onto your daily lives. I'm sure there are other things you'd rather do than to listen to us. So just a quick thing, we do have 2 meeting minutes to review tonight. Reserve fund stands at $23,853.37. Public forum is temporarily suspended due to the limitations of COVID-19. So under new business, we will perhaps we will move into reorganization if we do get a full contingent. We'll talk a little bit about the COVID-19 expense reimbursement. Subcommittee appointments are also under new business. Under old business, we do have the subcommittee reports from the Building Facilities Capital Expenditure Committee and from the Regional Agreement Amendment Committee. Then we have under old business as well, ATM warrant articles, Article 2, discussion and vote, a few more recommendations we have left. And we have the Whitman-Hanson Regional High School, the district here for discussion about the assessment and non-mandatory busing. So other business communications, and our calendar just has the annual town meeting on July 27th, next Monday, and we are posted for 5:30 on the JV baseball field at the Whitman-Hanson Regional High School. So with that, I welcome you one and all to our meeting. I would take the opportunity to go around the table, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, everybody knows each other by now because of our frequent meetings on this platform. So again, we appreciate the fact that the district is here to talk about the 2 issues we have left to consider for town meeting. So with that, I'll just cue it up by saying there are only 2 line items on our Article 2 that are left. Those are lines 175, the operating expense line, and line 178, the non-mandated busing line for the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District. So we have made a conscious decision to wait till we could have this meeting. Jeff, we appreciate you being here to answer questions that the board may have as we make our final recommendations for town meeting. So again, what I want to stress is the fact that because of our limited time, I want to limit our discussion to those 2 agenda items if possible. If the conversation drifts in another direction, I'm probably going to have to reel it in just a little bit because, like I say, we have so much business to attend to, and this is our final meeting before town meeting. So, I guess we'll start it off with the assessment item that we have up for discussion. So, Jeff, just to let you know a little bit, I'm sure you've been following, our discussions right along. Our message really hasn't changed. I want to be clear that you in the school committee and members of the district here tonight realize that we are fully in support as a finance committee of the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District budget. It is the method of assessment that we have an issue with, and obviously that will be a question for town meeting. So I'll turn the virtual floor over to you if you want to give some overview of perhaps how you want to present the issue to town meeting, or any other aspect of the assessment that you want to start out with.
Okay, thanks, Rick, for the opportunity to speak. I wasn't really sure what your line of questioning was going to be regarding the assessment, since the school committee presented both communities with the assessment and the assessment methodology back in May. As the FinCom knows, we've been working on the school budget since February. Actually, we started working on the school budget probably in November, and this assessment issue came to light way back in June of 2019. Outside in committee, meaning discussion around how to get a budget out of committee, we determined, I believe back in December, I asked the committee as my charge to tell me what method of assessment we would be using as we prepared the 2021 budget for the public forum or the public hearing. The school committee voted 6-4 for me to use the statutory method, which is the preferred method by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. I presented that budget using the statutory method in February. And if you followed our school committee meetings, we met pretty much live and in person from February through March 13th, and then almost virtually every week or every other week thereafter until May. The committee couldn't get a budget out of school committee with a 2/3 majority, which everyone here knows. To present the budget to both communities, the school committee has to affirm a budget of 2/2, and the assessment method by 2/3, and all of which can be one and the same. I presented in early May a method of compromise, I want to almost say a hybrid method of the statutory and the agreement methodology, which had been talked about by members of the selectmen in Whitman and members of the selectmen in Hanson. The number 50/50 came out, and I presented to the school committee a potential remedy to move a budget out to the two communities. Remember, back in early May, both the towns of Whitman and Hanson had their meetings scheduled for middle of June, and we have to provide both communities an assessment method and a budget method to present at town meeting. So the school committee affirmed, I believe 9-1, the compromise method, which everyone should have a copy of, and then then the budget was voted 10-0 to send to both communities. And I know that's been bantered around quite a bit, and here we are in July, a week before town meeting, in a 1/12 budget as assigned by the Commissioner of Education, which uses the statutory method. And I know where the Whitman FinCom, and I know verbally has said they support the school budget, but they don't support the methodology. There we have the issue in front of us is we have a compromise, which is on the warrant, which needs to be passed in both communities, and the budget number needs to be passed in both communities. Refreshing this committee's mind is that if that doesn't pass, I will remain in a 1/12 budget, and my cash flow will not allow me to spend more than, and John Tuffy's on, but I think it's 4.3 million and change, which will not support a full staff for opening in September. We will have a cash flow issue. We will have a revenue problem because both towns and Chapter 70 only allows us to spend the commissioner only allows us to spend that amount of money. So I'm hopeful that this committee supports the school budget and assessment methodology. I know that's something that you haven't been supportive of, but the school needs a budget. The school needs to be fully supported. Right now, we are struggling to open the buildings because of COVID-19. And I will tell you, we are looking at 3 models of opening, an in-person, probably 6 feet apart, which is, we can't staff, but I believe is probably one of the safest ways to go back to school. A hybrid model of kids coming in, and we haven't determined yet what that's gonna look like, or a remote model. If I'm down 40 staff members or 35 staff members, I don't know how we could ever get kids full-time in school. The largest class size will be at Conley at 35. And right now, by the best method of putting kids 6 feet apart, I could put 16 in a classroom. So I'm asking this committee to reassess how they want to put their conversations to the community. I'm sorry, I just read the text that came through and I didn't read it fully. But to support the school budget, I appreciate, but we also need the support of the methodology, at least for this year. That's all I have to say about that, I guess.
Okay. All right, Jeff, thank you very much. And before I open it up to questions, I think we're maybe skipping ahead. I mean, you're talking a little bit about a 1/12 budget. We're talking about town meeting and not supporting the article that doesn't divert $570,000 to Hanson's share of the assessment. In between those two things, there's a process, and there's a reconvening of the school committee to discuss a different budget number. I mean, we're not giving up hope that the school committee can then move to come out of committee and another town meeting be convened to discuss another number. So I just hope the discussion includes more than these two scenarios, because there's a whole bunch more in the middle, that's all.
Well, to be honest, the public needs to know that the school committee has up to 45 days to put a budget back out to the two towns and then reconvene a town meeting. That's not going to make it to September 8th. So everybody needs to know that there's a real reality of a 1/12 budget come September, and I'm talking about 40 employees that are looking for other positions right now. So it would not be in my best interest as a superintendent of schools to not give you the full outlook of what we could be potentially looking at. The committee, yeah, I believe the committee can talk about a budget and put something else out, but that would mean the committee takes their time to analyze why the towns did not vote for the methodology or the budget, and then convene another town meeting, which is up to your boards of selectmen. I don't have tremendous faith that that's going to happen before, or I might have, I might not, but I'm not going to gamble not getting the information out to public that we are in a 1/12, and it's a potential to be in a 1/12 come September 1st.
Okay, very good, thank you. I'll open it up now to questions from the Finance Committee. Kathleen.
Okay, so first, Jeff, I want to thank you for all of the information that you've given us, and you quite honestly are the only one who came up with a proposed compromise. And I, as you know, attended a lot of school committee meetings in person, and I've listened in virtually. And as a Whitman Finance Committee member, I've been waiting to hear some indication that Hanson was willing to accept any of the offers that were made prior to your saying, listen, this is what I've heard, you guys, let's do 50-50. And it's not one community, it's two communities that have to meet in the middle for this to happen. And I know that we as a FinCom have very mixed feelings about this. It's like needing the wisdom of Solomon to decide, how do you divide the baby? Do you split it in half, or does the mother who really loves the child say, here, you can have the baby, just don't kill the baby? And none of us wants to deny the children and the teachers and staff of the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District the money they need, and more so than that, to open up in this crazy period of COVID-19. But as a FinCom, we sat and we listened and we waited until there was no more time to wait. Waiting for Hanson to say, yeah, we'll take this. And I'm not finger pointing. This is not an easy situation. It's a lot of money that we're talking about, but we have no indication as a finance committee that Hanson is willing to support this. In fact, all of the meetings I've listened to in Hanson have had very mixed messages from the one board says don't vote for the override, another vote says if you don't, you'll be cutting services in Hanson. And now I've seen their projected draft for their town meeting, and they have two different recommendations for the Hanson voters. So, I mean, John Galvin said it best a few weeks ago when he said the kids need this money and the teachers need this money, and I do believe you do need the money. But we need some indication that Hanson, and I'm thrilled to see several Hanson School Committee representatives here tonight, that the representatives in Hanson are willing to go to bat for this compromise as well. Is there anyone from Hanson that has, and I don't see any Board of Selectmen members, but school committee members who can say they've talked to the Hanson officials and there is a sense that their town meeting will support the compromise?
So I guess to follow up on Kathleen, does anybody from the school committee from Hanson wish to respond? Chris, Howard.
Yeah, so I'll just be brief, and I think at this point, to Jeff's point, the school committee as a collective group has voted both the budget and the assessment methodology using the compromise, and that vote was 9-1. So at this point, I think that speaks to the will of the committee. I think that's more important than any individual thought. And I think at this point, we're all, based upon our vote, suggesting that that's the best path forward for both towns.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So just to follow up, Jeff, this is really a tale of two cities here, you know, and they are towns and they have their own, you know, selectmen and they have their own finance committees. But what kind of confidence do you have in the information that you're getting from the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee in Hanson about their ability to pay? Because I think we, you know, we have taken dramatic steps in the last few years. The town of Whitman economically has put a lot of things on the table, and we've initiated an enormous amount of new innovative programs to look at some strategic plannings for long-term financial planning for the town of Whitman. So for example, capital improvement plan. We have also engaged a consultant to talk about best practices and policy. We put together a policy committee. We put together a committee to evaluate the possibility of an override last year. We took in excess of $800,000 on, you know, out of stabilization in order to meet our commitment to the district several years ago and pay our assessment. So I guess what I'm looking for, and again, I don't want to put you on the spot. I know you can't speak for Hanson, but when you decide as a superintendent and the school committee to basically put all your eggs in one basket and say that we're going to make a budget and make recommendations on the one constant thing was that Hanson did not have the ability to pay. So all of the steps that have been taken from the Regional Agreement Amendment Committee through the entire different budget scenarios that the school committee laid out were all purposefully done in order for Hanson to meet its financial, or help them to what we had hoped meet their financial obligations. And do you, again, sorry for the long question, have the confidence in their ability to pay?
So I'll answer the question briefly. I don't have confidence in anything right now. I'll be very honest with you. I mean, I'm hearing from both communities that they're not going to support the budget and they're not going to support the amendment. So that's why I came out and explained the 112. I was able to serve on the Whitman committee to look at their finances, and I think it was a good opportunity to look at and speak to what the school's needs are. The only thing I can represent here is the needs of the faculty and students of the district of Whitman Hanson. And right now, I don't have a budget, and I have to open the school by September 8th. And there's so many uncertainties about how we're going to do that. I can't say how Hanson's going to pay the bill. I can't say how Whitman's going to pay the bill. That's up to the taxpayers of both communities. My position was to put forth a budget to get to the two communities, and we were on a deadline because we were spinning our wheels from February and through May. COVID-19 hit, and everything was extended. If all was well and good, this budget would have been passed, and we would have, or failed in May, and we would be at either another town meeting or a super town meeting. So my confidence in this budget, the process, I feel the budget, we vetted out the needs of what we need at bare minimum to support the learning and the educational environment of our students. I don't know what that's going to look like now that we've been out of school since March, and the needs that have been changed because students haven't been able to have face-to-face. So I don't want to seem like this is a cop-out. I can't answer for Hanson. I've had conversations with different members in Hanson, and it's been back and forth with different selectmen in both communities. I have not had the opportunity to speak to the Hanson FinCom. They haven't invited me to do such. This is the first opportunity that I've had to speak to the Whitman FinCom, but I think the budget that we put forth, to say that I have confidence right now in both communities supporting it, there's so much animosity on both sides of the table or both sides of the track. I'm not really sure. My name's getting dragged around as well, and that's a problem for me. I just hope that both communities and the taxpayers of both communities understand how important it is to fully fund the school budget, especially going into 2021 and with COVID-19 and all the moving parts that come with it. I think one of the questions was, how much is this going to cost extra? There is money out there for COVID expenses. for technology and stuff and the like. I shouldn't say stuff, technology materials, both software and hardware. I'll be working with Mr. Lynham and Mr. Stanbrook because Plymouth County has money that can be spent and it's reimbursable, but I can't put a price tag on how much more it's going to cost. I know that there are going to be students that are going to be in much more need because they are coming out of difficult situations when they've been at home for a while. And we'll have to reassess those as we go. But the confidence, and again, I don't want to cop out. I can't speak for the taxpayers of Hanson. I can't speak for the taxpayers of Whitman. I would hope that whoever's listening to this right now gets off of social media and talks to either the selectmen, the school committee members of Whitman FinCom or Hanson FinCom to see what's really out there. I think the process of what the failures of this budget will cost the district, not only in the short term, but in the long term. And sorry for the long answer, but Ricky asked a long question, so I figured I'd take advantage and answer it the best I could.
Thank you.
Very good. We appreciate your answer.
Great.
Rosemary, did you have a question? I can't see your hand.
Yes, I'm sorry. I have that video problem. Well, first of all, I think we said right off the bat, the total amount of your budget was very responsible. I mean, this was prior to COVID. So I'm empathetic to what you're saying. I absolutely believe the students need more. My question is to John Tuffy. John Tuffy, there is a calculation called a combined yield effort that gives you a general idea of what a town should be paying for school. I understand that they're calculating that combined now for the regional, but it can be broken apart to both schools as if we aren't regional. Have you done that yet? The combined yield effort?
I believe I know what you're talking about.
Are you unable to hear me?
That is a calculation that's part of the.
I can't hear you. I'm so sorry.
I think he's breaking
John,
up.
just so you know, you're not
Anybody
coming
hear me?
through.
Just wave.
Rosemary, just so you know, John is attempting to respond, but I don't think he has a proper connection. So maybe we'll get back to him with that particular
Yes,
question.
we'll get back to him when the connection is
We'll
on.
give him an opportunity to.
And then I was the one who asked about the projected cost. I've been doing my research and looking at how much the projected cost. I understand we have about $1 million left in Whitman in that fund. And I don't know how much Hanson spent. I looked on the chart the other day and I couldn't see that they pulled anything. But when I look on, I can find only a BBC article that's saying the average cost will be for a school is $1.4 million just to handle COVID needs. Is that something that you're seeing? Or like I said, it's very hard to get a estimate, and that's based on all kinds of countries and different schools, but to effectively do it, it's 1.4. Can you speak to that?
So I've heard that number too. They're putting a cost on what PPE might be. It could be close to $1.6 million for our district. We haven't absorbed that PPE cost. Did I lose you for a minute? Sorry. We're focused in on, and as far as that number with Whitman and Hanson, right now Plymouth County should have an approximation of $225 per pupil, which would be about $855,000 for the district for PPE, technology-related educational expenses due to COVID. We also received $292,000 from DESE in an ESSER grant for technology in PPE, and there's also monies available in a couple other grants that we can access. But it could be very expensive depending on the model and what we have available to roll out as far as the options for the school committee on how we determine to come back. If we were to come back full time, I would assume that's going to cost more in PPE, cleaning, sanitization. If we come back remotely and it's a transition period, that might be less, but I will have to use more of that money for technology and software so kids can access things. One of the conversations came up as far as a remote learning experience is maybe putting cameras in the classroom so kids can log in remotely while their teacher's giving the lesson to the other 15 in class. That's an expense that we are going to look at. but I don't want to give a ballpark that there are costs out there, but there are monies involved. And I know that our school committee signed on to any COVID-related expense would not be an unfunded mandate and have to be funded by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts or the federal government. And I believe close to 100 plus school committees have already signed on to that. It's a valid question. I don't know what I don't know yet as far as when we roll out and what those expenditures are going to be. I'm trying to put together the plan that if we have to spend money, it will be for technology, so that if and when we do go remote again, because I believe that I've heard that might be coming, our students are in the best possible way to access their curriculum, and their teachers have adequate technology at home to provide that educational experience.
Thank you, Jeff. Frank, quickly, Jeff mentioned something about $250 per student. When I talked to the commissioner, I got a different story. And maybe again, this is so kind of crazy because Plymouth County is separate, and maybe there's been updates to this, but he said that's how the state was handling it, but not Plymouth County, that the schools have access to the whole amounts given to both towns, whatever is filed. Can you speak to that?
Thank you, muted.
Plymouth County has provided through Tom O'Brien guidance that the COVID support from the towns in Plymouth County to the schools in their towns would be $225 per student.
Tom O'Brien said that to you?
Not to me, to a group in a meeting the other day.
Right, I talked to him personally. I might have talked to him before that group. He said they were still working it out, but he said that was happening on the state level, but not there. So let me call him back and double check that, but thank you.
Okay, and just to follow back on Rosemary's question to John, perhaps if you could send a text message to answer her question if you still have no audio. Is that something you can do, John?
Can you hear me now? Hello?
No.
Yeah.
You're on NyQuil.
Yeah, we're still not getting through, John. So if you can respond by text, that would be fine. If not, we'll move on to another subject.
Later.
Okay, so does anybody from the committee have any further questions before I open it up to a school committee and anyone else regarding the assessment? Ralph, did you have your hand up? No, okay. So just very quickly, so Jeff, just to recap prior to town meeting. So, we have to just think back of all the things that we've done to look at the financial possibilities, I guess, for the school budget. And looking at the spreadsheet that you provided in that handout that you sent to the town administrator that had about 2,000 pages on it. We used the handout that has the letter H on it. I think you remember this particular spreadsheet. So the assessment for 2021 budget of $55,320,238 for Whitman. The assessment would be $14,796,475 using the statutory method. That is the number that we have in our place setter on Article 2. And discussion tonight will be to finalize the vote for recommendation to town meeting. So I just want you to know that that is still the number that the Finance Committee has been using when we talk about supporting the district's budget for fiscal 21. So,
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead. Yes, Fred.
If I could add something, the budget that we put through, and I'm awful sorry about this, the budget that we had put through included an amendment which would agree with or do something with our partners in Hanson to try and solve a situation and get a budget through. Barring that happening, I don't see any way that we get a budget through. It comes back to us. And then it's up to the school committee. There's timing issues as well as we can, at that point, Either lower the budget, leave it the same, or raise it. You know, those are our three options. Okay, and as far as the amendment goes, I think it was attempted many, many times, you know, with boards of selectmen and a separate RAC committee in order to come to some sort of an agreement. I was the dissenting vote originally because I didn't feel I had enough opportunity to read everything through and understand it properly. And I wasn't going to vote on it at that point in time. That was me personally. Okay, when we re-voted it at our last meeting, the vote was 10-0. I think we all stand united and unanimous in trying to get a budget put forward. We go first, and I'm going to beg your committee, it's a little bit more, one more year, that we're reaching out to our partners, and it's a show of good faith and it's a show of great effort. If they rebuff it, that's a whole different world. But if we go with the 15, I think it's 15-3, it's within what the scopes and the parameters of what we were originally told were affordable for the town of Whitman. You know, we desperately need to come to a compromise and put our best foot forward. I'm the one that voted, you know, the motion for the statutory method, and I believe in the full statutory method. And if this is the path to get there for next year, then, you know, that's what it is. And sometimes you have to do something that you're not so comfortable with for the greater good, and it's for the greater good of this district if we can put that forward. Not use 14-9, but use the 15-3 type number.
So for me, Fred, I guess the fact that we have for this long given Hanson the hope that there was some compromise, it actually derailed the opportunity for the leadership of Hanson to articulate to the taxpayers the importance of coming up with a financial plan so that they don't have to have their assessment subsidized by the town of Whitman any longer. So I guess, you know, it's just two schools of thought. But when it does come back to the school committee, it will be coming back to the school committee using the statutory method. So, you know, you talk a little bit about a partnership. I just really think long and hard when I take a look at Hanson's town warrant and I see that they have an article in there about seeking a home rule petition to change, you know, the assessment method forever. So that's—
I understand, and it ticks you off. I get it. It ticked me off when I saw it. Okay, but at the same time, we can win the battle and lose the war, and the war being doing the best for what's best for kids right now. And it's not using them as pawns. Okay, it's doing the best and the right thing to get a budget, and the God forbid could still happen. The governor could come out and they could come out with, you know, between the conference committees, between the House and the Senate, and they could freeze Chapter 70 funding to this year. Well, that's not going to kill us. That's $130,000, $140,000. You know, we don't get much Chapter 70 increases. But if they cut it back 5 or 10%, you know, 10% is $2.5 million bucks. We're back in a lot of trouble.
Okay, Fred, before I open it back up to the committee, I have to go back to what Kathleen said, John said, several of the members said, this finance committee is committed to the education of our children. But we are also not going to make pawns out of the taxpayers of Whitman. We have paid and overpaid the assessment for a great number of years. The line is drawn. There is no opportunity for the town of Whitman to pay an amount of money for Hanson's share of the assessment in the future. That's simply a financial decision that the Whitman Finance Committee has made and sustained throughout this entire discussion. I'll move it to Dan and then Al.
Just quickly.
Go ahead, Dan.
Just quickly. I want everybody to realize.
Rosemary, hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
Rosemary, hold on 1 second. Dan has the floor. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to point out something. The finance committee keeps saying we've been overpaying. You really haven't been overpaying because we didn't know we're in this situation. Hanson didn't like stick a bill to us and say you're going to overpay. This was just found out. In this little compromise of 50-50, it was up to me. That's a no-brainer. And talk to people in Hanson. When this was caught, if it was caught back when it was supposed to be like a 3 to 5 year phase over, so that the burden wouldn't be putting everything on one town or the other. We're Whitman, we're Hanson. The school committee has to deal with both towns. To say they've been, undershooting us money, that's got to stop, because it wasn't until like last year that this all came forth. Yeah, if we did statutory, we were in that boat. We weren't doing statutory, unfortunately. That has to stop, just like the Hanson part has to stop saying they're robbing us because they're giving us statutory. All right, it's a law now. Unfortunately, we have to deal with this. We have to move forth. The best way to move forth, a 50-50 compromise is going to do really nothing. If it doesn't pass, I'll tell you one thing, the school system's going to go right down the toilet, because that 1/12 method, because you're not going to have a payroll. We're going to start losing teachers. Kids aren't going to be getting educated anymore. And it's like a pissing match between the two towns, where Whitman standing up saying, we're not doing anything but the statutory. We're not budgeting on that. And Hanson on their side saying the opposite, you're overcharging it. It's not an overcharge. It's being corrected right now. And both sides couldn't get that done. Behind closed doors, talking to people from the school committee on the Hanson side, Whitman side, it bounced around for a while, and Jeff came up with the solution 50-50, because that seemed to be the one we're hearing the most of both sides. The stuff to say we've been overpaying, we might have been overpaying, but it wasn't knowledgeable to us at the time. It's only been a 1 or 2 year thing. We have to get this budget passed this year, and if it's a 50-50 compromise, it's not that much, because next year it's statutory. If Hanson doesn't vote for the compromise, that's on them. We can't go back and redo that probably, and we're going to be doing statutory in the long run. In both towns, the children are going to really pay for it. We really have to stop tossing around the way the money, it really isn't that way. I understand what you're saying if you look at it from one view, but the view, Hanson didn't stick it to us for all these years. Both towns know about this, and when we finally figured it out, we're kind of slow with doing this, but we have to remember, if this was found out back in, 15 years ago, it would have been a 3 to 5 year phase in. So for a 1 year phase in, that's not much to ask. And to shut that down at this time, to compromise, to get this budget, the 1/12 will devastate us. We asked this at the last meeting, and I think, John, you right off the bat was saying, because I was trying to get around, we won't have money for payroll to open the school session.
Okay, Dan, we appreciate your comments. Al?
No, just a thought. Dan, I don't disagree with you to a point, but what about the residents of Whitman too as well? It's 4 years from my understanding, and so the tax, you're saying that the taxpayers of Whitman should burden the cost for this because the town of Hanson does not want to do an override?
I guess that question's to you, Dan.
No, it's not that the town of Hanson didn't want to override. If you had to do this, back when it was done, Al, it would have been over a couple of years period, like a 90-10, a 70, a 50-50, something like that. They're only asking for, we're trying to put up a compromise for a 50-50 one-time hit. That's it. Then they're on the statutory.
What's going to happen next year, Dan?
That was never given the chance to the town of Hanson to, what happened if this was the other way around and Hanson was the less.
The amendment clearly states that it goes to full statutory next fiscal year. Clearly, unequivocally states that. That would be in the agreement. It's an amendment to our regional agreement. I believe our superintendent might have some additional information. I saw the little text blurb. I don't know if everyone saw it.
So Rick, to answer your question before about selectmen, I just got a text that the Hanson selectmen voted 5-0 to support the amendment. They're meeting right now. So to answer your question about that conversation, they voted 5-0 to support the amendment on their warrants next week.
Okay, and their finance committee voted completely the opposite, right? 5-0 not to support. So
there are numbers we have to use. We are a finance committee. We cannot make choices with bias. If I could make choices with bias, oh, trust me, that school would be way better funded than it is. Far more than you've even asked, Jeff. But by law, I have to make decisions based on numbers and facts, not emotions. I believe that I will personally vote for this compromise, but as a finance committee member, I have to split myself and make a financial choice. You are asking us to do something for Whitman not to have an impotent finance committee to make bad financial choices. Now I've asked Mr. Tuffy a question that I generally know the idea of. How much over the combined yield effort is Whitman and how much under is Hanson? And the fact of the matter is if we were not regionalized, Hanson would have to pay this money anyway. So this is not an issue of a fight between towns. It's an issue of following the money, doing the math, and understanding what's best financially for the Whitman citizens. I have a different emotional feeling on this. And it's as if you're looking at the town that you think's gonna budge. And guess what? I will personally budge. My personal vote can be biased, but my vote on finance cannot be. And my financial advice to my community cannot be. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Rosemary. And does anybody else have anything else regarding the assessment, John?
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask Rosemary, so you're comfortable with only giving the schools a 2.8% increase this year?
I never did that.
Well,
I never just gave them a 2.8 interest.
That's what we're doing. Excuse me, can I talk? I have the floor.
Rosemary, hold on. Go ahead, John. Go, John.
That's what we're giving them. 2.8% is the 14,796,475.
Unless you have a crystal ball.
Excuse me, I am still speaking. I am still speaking.
He's not done, John.
Mary, please let me finish. The Budget Override Committee, we came up with a number of 5% that the town would be able to afford, okay? Right now, we're giving them 2.8. The 15.3, that's the compromise agreement, is 6.7%, only a little over what the town agreed we could afford. So right now, you're saying that you're following the money, and no, what you're doing is taking the least expensive way out. 2.8% is not what we should be giving.
I would like you not to say what I am doing.
Rosemary, hold on.
But don't tell me what I'm doing. I am following the money exactly, and you don't have a crystal ball to say what Hanson's doing. I'm giving the best financial advice.
We're not here to handle Hanson's financial. We're here to handle
correct.
Whitman's. And Whitman, we made when we came out of that Budget Override Committee, we felt comfortable that 5% was a number that we wanted to go to. And throughout this whole process at the beginning, when we weren't quite there yet, several members of this committee were saying, well, we need to go to 5%. Now we're only at 2.8%. And we could go to 6.7. We could go a little over.
That money to be spent. If it was 5%, it would have to be equal to what the other community was spending to achieve that higher education. We need the value of that money. So whatever money spent, we need the value achieved. That would be like saying, I'll pay full price for half a sandwich to our community. That's wrong. We are not getting the value of that money. And we are finance committee members that have to also watch the value of our coin.
Yeah, but don't you also have an obligation to the town to give the best advice possible to all the citizens of the town? Not just a financial saying this is the cheapest way out? I mean, if that's the case, why don't you go get a fleet of Yugos and give them to the fire department?
I'm so sorry.
Okay, let's hold on the discussion. Let's move to be recognized, please. Rosemary, have you completed?
I apologize, Mr. Chair.
I've said, we are asking two things, two very responsible things. We are asking, one, that you follow school policy, because the school policy that you have states statutory, and that you follow the law. And it is irresponsible to do anything else and to ask for our community to pay more and have less of a value. And that is the most responsible way forward. Now, this should have been pressure put onto the town that owes the money, not the community that does not. I personally want those children to have that money, but I cannot give unsound financial advice. People trust us to give sound financial advice that follows the law and the numbers.
Okay, Rosemary, I'm gonna just limit your comments. We appreciate everyone's comments here. I'm just gonna give Kathleen another opportunity.
And I'm going to keep it brief. I think our responsibility as a finance committee is to inform the voters of how much something costs, not necessarily that this is the cheapest way to do it. And as John Galvin rightly pointed out, I'll raise my hand and say, I was one of the ones who kept saying, put a 5% placeholder in there from day one. And at this late hour, it's like 11:59 and Cinderella is hearing the bell chime. We have to do the responsible thing. And I accept responsibility, if the chair still wants me to explain the cost of statutory versus per pupil versus the 50-50 compromise. But I want these kids to have the best shot at whatever crazy solutions the superintendent and the school committee can come up with for the fiscal 21 school year. I'm a school teacher myself, and I'm on a committee trying to figure out the remote learning model, the hybrid model, and we're going to work on the in-person model. And we aren't under the gun of, we don't have a budget. We do have a budget in the school system where I'm teaching, and it's impossible. It's exasperating, and I'm a committed teacher. I'll do whatever it takes to teach these kids, but I don't have to worry about, do I have a job and am I going to get paid? Or am I going to I'll be the only teacher and my colleagues get laid off, so I'm going to have 150 kids I'm responsible for. So I appreciate Mr. Small's admission that he had time to think about the compromise. I know that it was a 9-to-1 vote. And sometimes when we are pressed to make a vote, we do the conservative thing. Then we have time to think about it, rethink our position. And I actually wasn't aware that it's now it's a unanimous vote by the school committee. So I will explain the costs involved in the 3 different methods, including the 50-50 compromise. But I'm not going to hold the superintendent hostage to what the heck is Whitman going to do. I absolutely support the budget, and at this point in time, I will absolutely support the compromise, because if this goes back to the school committee because one town doesn't support the compromise, it's going to be the compromise. It's not going to be the dollar figure. The school committee can cut $1 million from the budget. It's still going to be the method. It's going to be statutory versus per pupil versus compromise. And these poor kids and these poor teachers are not going to know what to do. And this is not playtime now. We're talking about a group of kids who have missed out on 3 months of their education, a group of educators who haven't had a chance to figure out how to do it, and now they should be doing the professional development. So if it's any relief to the superintendent and the school committee members, and I am pleased to see that the Hanson selectmen vote unanimously to support the amendment, so that's good news. I will speak to the facts involved and what it costs the Whitman taxpayers to vote A, B, or C. But as a Whitman taxpayer and a grandmother of 4 Whitman students, I'm going to vote for the budget, which means I'm going to vote for the compromise.
Okay, is there anybody else that wishes to speak regarding the assessment issue? We still want to get to the other item, agenda item for the district. I appreciate everybody's comments. Yes, it is very important that we let the taxpayer know what the exact financial implications are, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's $570,000 that the Whitman will pay in addition by supporting the compromise. So anybody else, anything to do with the assessment issue? Okay, thank you all for, obviously it's it's an issue that can create some passion in a hurry. So with respect to the assessment, no, we're done with that. We're going to go on to the non-mandated busing. So Jeff, just a brief thing. You and I discussed getting together. This was one of the topics that we wanted to discuss before, obviously, the assessment issue took center stage. Whitman Finance Committee and even the Board of Selectmen have been talking about doing something with the non-mandated busing for a number of years now. Our last discussion, you said that a survey was going out to the parents, and part of the survey, I guess, was to ask them, is your student going to ride the bus? So in advance of this meeting, Don Byers did provide some information regarding another district and how they go about manipulating or operating a pay-to-ride program. So Jeff, if you can just give us a little bit of facts and figures associated with non-mandated busing to start it out.
Sure. So just to let you know, as the finance committee, I don't know how we're going to do transportation anyway in September. Right now, for all kids, nevertheless non-mandated kids. Right now, directions from DESE is putting 24 kids on a bus, and I don't know how we're going to be able to afford that, or the bus companies don't even have enough buses to do that. So I'm looking for some more guidance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education on what transportation is all about. Just to give you an idea, what we're projecting, non-mandated, and this is students now, 329 students will be riding the bus for Conley School. For Duval School, it's 267 students. For Whitman Middle, it's 167 students. And we bus all those students for Whitman Hanson Regional. So you're looking at a good chunk of people, of kids that are within 1.5 miles that the town of Whitman has graciously decided that they will pay for their buses or for their ride to school. Just to give you an overview, Duval School has in Whitman, Duval School has the highest rate of free and reduced lunch. So I don't know if parents are going to be able to afford a bus ride. Again, this is going to be up to the FinCom and the selectmen. Take the school district out of this one. That's not my decision. I don't have to transport those students. Traditionally, the towns have done that. I will also add, I kind of Googled what Manchester, Essex is, and that's a community that spends more than $17,800 per pupil in 2018. We spend $12,700, and we're 50% funded by the state. So we're talking apples and oranges about the communities that can afford to pay for busing, and their district is a little over 1,300. Our district is a little over 3,800. So yes, I think, and Frank Lynham and I spoke last year briefly around a methodology if the towns wanted to go to a pay-to-bus. The school department could facilitate that, but that's a decision that the towns have to make or the selectmen have to make to pull that off the table. It's something that I don't want to get in the weeds with this committee because I have enough to worry about how I'm going to get the other students to school, quite honestly. And that's not a decision that I'm going to make. But I will say, you know, the community of Whitman has close to a 33% free and reduced population, and those are the folks who were grabbing the grab-and-go lunches when we were out for COVID. And that's something that I think the committee has to take into serious consideration, that we're going to tell parents who are now struggling to feed their families to now pay for a bus to ride to school.
Okay, so just two quick things to follow up. Did you get any information from the survey that would lead you to believe that less people are going to be riding the bus, or really?
So 60% of the parents said they would take busing. 40% said they would not. 1,100 people answered the survey. So I mean, it's a good chunk, but I didn't do it by town. We didn't break it down by town who would take the bus. But 60% of parents said that the kids would be riding the bus.
So where you say that it's a decision of the town, could you provide that information perhaps so that we could use it as we decide how to move forward with any type of a pay-to-ride program that we talk about in the next 12 months?
Sure.
Sure.
I can send you as much information as you'd like. That's not a problem.
All right. The other question is just specifically to the negotiated return from the transportation company for the busing that wasn't utilized in the last fiscal year. Would you not say that a percentage of that should have been attributed to that line item for non-mandated busing? Shouldn't a percentage have gone back?
Yeah, so we negotiated, I believe, with First Student on a rate of, we're paying 35 cents on the dollar. So that's something that we can look at crediting the town of Whitman for services that weren't used in 2020. That's what we're looking at. But those numbers we haven't been able to finalize at the year end as we close the book. but definitely Whitman will receive a credit off their tab for next year, whatever that tab is going to be, because Whitman pays their bill in full, and there will be some monies that we will figure out that the town will be owed, so to speak, for the busing that wasn't provided from March 13th till June 15th.
So just going back a little bit, your school committee met to discuss the disposition of the return of the money, and it was used to pay, and correct me if I'm wrong, for some curriculum that is going to be implemented for this school year. So the money, the return from the transportation company has already been allocated. Is that correct?
So Fred, did you want to respond? Because you're
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. I know we've had the discussion. The non-mandated busing. Okay, the regional transportation money, that was what was allocated toward paying for the curriculum. Anything left over in regional transportation. If you get your regional transportation for 1 year and you use that money to pay for the next year. Is basically how it goes. And we never know for sure how much we're getting. The supplementals, if John Tuffy can hear, we got an additional check this year, and I want to say it was April, and that was for FY 18, I believe, the supplemental, or 19, one of the two. 19, okay, I'm reading lips. But so we never know how much. So the regional transportation portion, that's what rolls over into E&D generally. But we made the decision to utilize that for the curriculum. The non-mandated busing, and I thought that it was the district's pleasure to write a check once they determine exactly how much it is, would be going back to the individual towns, whatever was saved there.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to chime in regarding non-mandated busing? Okay, as I said, go ahead, Kathleen.
Just briefly, I think that the dollar figure for Whitman is so significant. It's $400,000 projected for fiscal 21. This is something worth studying. So I'm not saying pull it out of the budget for fiscal 21. We may not even have kids riding a bus to school, but it definitely is something that we should study instead of saying each year, parents can't afford to pay it. Maybe some parents are just putting the kids on the bus because it doesn't cost them anything, and they might be willing to walk the child to school. So the parents haven't been asked to think about it as a cost. So I would like to think that we can not ask them to pull this out of fiscal 21, but definitely not say, and we're not going to talk about this ever again. I think it's worth studying for maybe a phase in over 2 to 3 years so that people can talk about what it costs to bus a child and how much it costs to him.
Go ahead, Fred.
If I could respond, and I do want to thank you for your response earlier. I just want to applaud and clap and say thank you. But then you get the parent that says, okay, I don't want to pay. I'm going to walk my child to school, but you still have that big school bus. So all it means is that it costs you the same for the run. You're paying the same to the bus company, but you just have a seat that's not filled. That's where the tricky part gets, and how much you'll actually save. And I'm not positive if DESI has to approve it. I know when the idea first came out, I did call DESI and ask them, how does this work, etc. And somehow I got the commissioner on the phone, and he can be very, boisterous, or, rip you a new one, so to speak, very quickly. And, so what do you mean you want to take things away from kids? Well, let me ask you this. Where are you at with this number, that number? And then he was firing them off faster than I could listen to him. So I don't know if even DESI, but if I'm not mistaken, that policy decision would be up to the Board of Selectmen. It is probably very worthwhile for you folks to talk with them. We carry out the administration. The only thing I'd want to ask Jeff is, when we enter into a new contract, because I think their contract was just extended for this year and then it's up next, if I'm not mistaken.
We will be negotiating this year, yes.
That we can make sure that we have an out clause, so to speak, if we need to reduce that run of some sort.
Right.
We got the heads up on that, but we simply administrate it for you folks,
Sure.
for the Board of Selectmen.
you know, we understand that we don't have any delusions that we're going to, you know, reduce this line by any, you know, significant amount. But I think it's important that we go down the road. I mean, like I said, Don Byers came up with a pretty good, just a preliminary plan that was a phased approach that just basically said in year one, just ask the parents if they don't want to drive. And from there, you know, you can just start the discussion and somehow transition into, you know, something a little bit more responsible than just writing a check for $401,000. So,
Frank and Justin, a few years ago, we talked about this. Actually, it was last year when Justin was on the school committee, I mean, on the finance with us. And we spoke about doing reduced or free for low income. Did you continue looking into that?
Justin, I guess for you first.
Either
I
one.
was going to let Frank answer first if he, and he's muted.
Okay, Frank.
The determination at that point was made to continue to offer the non-mandated busing. So, and whatever we would look into would be with the assistance of the school department, because we have to identify where those travelers are coming from, and then figure out whether there's a plan that we can offer that will meet the needs of those people who actually have to have it. You know, we haven't researched it, not to the degree that we could offer any recommendation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Justin, anything you want to add?
That just about covered it. It would be a lot of administrative work up front because obviously the schools have the information about the students. We don't know what a fair price is. We'd have to look at the surrounding communities. So I don't know that the work is in place to take this on right now.
Okay, very good. And from Jeff, again, he made a commitment to assist in any way possible. So we'll continue discussion. We appreciate you taking the time to answer the questions from the Finance Committee as we make our final recommendation. Does anybody else have anything for Jeff or members of the school committee? John Tuffy, thank you for attending as well. Anybody, and Jeff, is anything, questions that you may have for the Finance Committee?
Nope, not at this point. I appreciate the time to speak. And Mrs. Oteen, I was just going to say, if you want to work with me, if you need information, anytime we want to do that, we can do that. I just can't do it during budget season. It seems to come up in March every year when we're counting pennies here, and now we want to do a full study. So if we want to do something once we roll into October and November, when we have some normalcy and parents can get a good firm on where we are, I'd be very happy to do that. I would like from either the Finance Committee or from the Selectmen or from Frank something in writing to say you'd like our assistance in that, so that we work as a partnership together to research that information. That's all I would ask, and not have it happen in March. So,
all right, thanks. Then we will definitely get with the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, to initiate the discussion to then pull you in as we need. And we understand about certainly the budget season complications. So again, thank you all for participating. We appreciate each and every one of you taking the time out of your night to come talk to us.
Thank you.
Good to see you all.
Well.
Thank you.
Jeff.
Thanks a lot. Good night.
Okay, so we're back to our regular order of business, I would imagine, taking a look at the agenda. So we do have 2 meeting minutes that were emailed in advance. We also have line items to talk about. We need to vote Article 6. I believe we need to vote Article 8. And there are also Articles 30, 31, 32, and 33 that are related to collective bargaining, which we had deferred to make recommendations on town hall floor, but I would suggest if we wanted to make them now, we might make it a little bit easier given the circumstances that are going to be associated with town meeting. Frank, would you concur that it would be better to have those recommendations printed in the warrant?
Sure, I'm going to go to print tomorrow, so whatever decisions you make today are going to be locked in.
Right, very good. All right, so then we do have the two Article 2 lines 175, 178 that we also have to vote, so that would complete, as far as I'm aware, everything in Article 2 then would be complete and ready for print. So given that,
I would note that the warrant and the draft Article 2 are on the website, are available for people to look at. And I've actually received one response from all of that information. So I know it's there to be viewed.
yes, I downloaded the entire thing myself. So just for, you know, like I said, our final recommendations to make sure they get printed in the final draft. So
yep.
Excellent. No, we appreciate you providing them. And I really can't understand why taxpayers don't take more of an active role in taking a look at this stuff before town meeting, but it is what it is. So with that, I will probably move to take care of the 2 meeting minutes that we have that were emailed. Did anybody not get them? So we have July 7th and July 14th.
I move July 7th.
Kathleen?
Moves this meeting minutes from July 7th.
Okay. So we have a motion to accept the meeting minutes from July 7th. Did anybody not have an opportunity to review them?
I have not had a full opportunity because I just got into my email. Like
Okay, and Chuck, you as well have not been able to.
Yeah, I am still email absent. I've been trying to get in touch with Josh again, but I haven't heard back from him.
So anytime that happens, if you can give me a call or something, I can get you the information some other means too. So
what,
if that happens to anybody,
Chuck, what's the problem? Is your password not working, or?
Yeah, so apparently, you know how it comes up. You have to change it every 6 months or so.
Yeah.
So I was having trouble, and I contacted Josh on Thursday, and he reset my password. But I don't know if I messed up my username too. But I tried to straighten it out Thursday night, and I had no luck. And
I'll reset it tomorrow morning. I don't know if I have your regular email, but
yeah, I had asked. My last email to Josh was to reset my username to C Colby J.
That's not an easy thing to do.
Right.
All right.
Okay,
what is it?
That change. It's right now. It's C Colby.
Just a C Colby.
Yes, and to change it causes.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure.
On the net.
I was trying many different things, and I'm sure I wound up with not the right one.
All right, so I don't have a problem with moving the meeting minutes to the pre-meeting for town meeting.
Well,
Just
I'm okay
obviously
abstaining. If everybody else has read them, you know, I may abstain just because I haven't read them. If we need to move them,
it's not really all that important that the meeting minutes. We do have time, like I said, before town meeting. We are posted for 5:30, so.
Okay.
Unless someone is insistent that we move forward to the meeting minutes.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Finally.
All right, so moving on. John, could you put up the Article 2? And
I'm going to put up the Article 2 within the file that Frank sent out, because I have that one here. So give me a second while I. Sorry, I'm having trouble finding it. That must be it. Yes, all right.
Okay, so that's the warrant.
Yeah, hold on.
There we are, page 5 of 10. So the two lines we have yet to act on, as indicated in yellow, are line 175 and line, well, actually,
It's offset a little bit.
yeah. So operating expense, Frank, isn't that supposed to be 175?
For some reason, when I converted to PDF, it offset. It should be 175 and 178. It is correct on the web now. I found it about an hour or two later when I went to look at something and said, whoa.
Good thing you looked at it. All right. So I will entertain a motion to for line 175.
I would like to make a motion of $15,367,391.75.
I'll second that motion for a revision.
Okay, so for discussion, we have a motion. So the motion is to, from what I understand, from how the motion is presented, is to recommend line 175 to reflect the compromise assessment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if the board still would like to not support the compromise method, I would suggest that the discussion include not supporting the recommendation that's just been put forth, and for someone else to make a recommendation for line 175 to read $796,475. So we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Okay, so I can't see everybody. Can anybody just speak up if they have something to discuss? I only have 5 people in my view again.
Rick, it's Kathleen.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
As you know, I've supported the statutory method from day one, and we've been in the listening mode, and we've been playing, I don't even want to call it, playing chicken with our member town. And I'm at the point right now where the superintendent is desperate, and this is not a time to play games. COVID-19 has made this a whole new ballgame. And we go first. If we support the amendment and Hanson does not, then there's nothing for us to have gained. If we support the amendment, it gives Hanson the opportunity to say, yep, we'll take the 50-50 and we'll go in full statutory next year, end of discussion. So I support the motion that John has made and that Dave has seconded for the purposes of doing what's right by the children and the teachers and the staff members of the Whitman Hanson School Department.
Yes.
Okay, and I would like to say that I understand your position. I understand John's position and Dave's position as well. However, I think that this board has made a commitment to put forth what is in the best interest of the taxpayers here in Whitman. So there's no question that on town meeting floor, there is going to be a request for an amendment, and the amendment will be as stated as the motion was just presented. I am quite certain. But I would suggest that this committee stay with their commitment to the taxpayers by supporting the statutory method, and by supporting the statutory method, then one would have to not vote to concur with the motion that's on the floor. So anybody else? Discussion.
I have something to say.
Go ahead.
If I don't act like a finance committee member and consider the entire town's finances and the ability to ask the community for overrides in the future, I don't know who's going to be a finance committee. I agree that certain aspects of our community need this money, but I have to consider all aspects and the financial, like, have we met our financial obligations? And we have met our financial obligations. We are over minimal local contribution to a responsible amount. We have done that. So I personally, like I said, I cannot vote with bias. I will maintain that, but I will vote differently on the floor. But as a finance committee member, I have to only consider the finances and the responsibility to fund each community demographics. We have responsibly funded our children in this amount. We have met that obligation. And that's, so I will have to continue that because I need to ask possibly the community in the future for overrides for that demographic and what they truly owe. And I have to consider the long-term effect of financing the schools and everything and trust with my community.
Okay, John.
You know, there's been discussion about value and, you know, value of the statutory method. And from the beginning, I've always been in favor of the statutory method. But value is important. And voting the statutory method right now is not the value way to go because we lose 40 teachers. Value right now is to support the 50-50 amount so that we do not lose our staff at the school system. That's where the value is. And, you know, and I think from a standpoint of our budget, there's no question that we can afford it. So that's my statement.
Okay, Al?
Just a quick question. Sean, is there any guarantees this is going to change?
What's going to change?
Who are you directing your question at, Al? Me?
John. I mean, John.
What do you mean? What's going to change?
Well, he's going to go in next year. What kind of guarantee?
Next year, the following year, are they going to be able to pay their share?
I have no idea. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Whitman.
Right.
And you know, what Hanson does is right. Hanson's responsibility.
Right, but we're asking the taxpayers to cover Hanson with obviously increased fees, and we've paid in the past, which is fine. But the reality is, you're telling taxpayers we want to pay more for Hanson because Hanson does not want to do an override. That's what I see.
I think we want to pay more so that we don't lose 40 teachers. That's why we want to pay more.
So how come Hanson doesn't feel that way?
I'm not. What's presented to us right now by the school committee is what we're voting on, and that's what we have to vote on. We don't. If we vote a different way, and it fails, and even if we vote for it, Hanson still may vote it to fail, and it goes back. And you heard the superintendent tonight.
Sure.
No matter all the recourses, we go back and all that. By September 1, that's not all going to happen.
So it's a vicious cycle, right?
Well, it's not a vicious cycle. It's a COVID cycle. Had all of this happened in June when we were supposed to have our town meeting, then we would have had time to deal with it. But because we didn't, and we're on a 1/12 now, that we're running out of time.
Okay, so Al, just a little bit to your question too. Yeah, it is important that we consider what the other town is doing.
Right.
Yes, we should consider what the other town is going to do additionally. And when we look at our finances next year and look at the very realistic implications of the COVID-19 on our budget, and we reflect back the fact that we paid $570,000 of Whitman's tax money to supplement Hanson's assessment, there's going to be some people saying, what were you thinking? There's no doubt in my mind. So yes, it's a passionate issue. Yes, we're talking about the kids and we're talking about a 1/12 budget, but we are talking about an overarching implication to Whitman's finances for many years to come. So this isn't something that, you know, we can take lightly. I mean, when people say it's not a game, I think we're well aware that it's not a game. We've been looking at this for 11 months, and for 11 months, we've had the same position, that we have supplemented Hanson's finance with respect to the assessment for a long time. That is the compromise. That is the transition.
It's really a tough, Rick, it's really a tough decision though, because I got kids in this school program.
No doubt about it.
I'm not sure people on this finance committee who's got kids and who doesn't have kids. But I got kids at going into a senior year, and I also got it going into 8th grade. You know, interesting times ahead. But I hate to see kick the can down the road again.
Yeah, we all have kids. We all have kids in the school. Every kid in the school system is our kid. That's the way I look at it.
Every senior is our senior, And every police officer or staff is our staff.
Sure.
Every single community member. I just want to make note, unless we have a crystal ball, we can't tell what Hanson's going to choose. We can't, so putting it all on Whitman's responsibility. For me, I want to be really clear. I'm making my decisions based on what is the best financial choice. Christmas is not the best financial choice. If we were in here and we had to vote on, hey, would you advise spending money for Christmas gifts? I would say no. I would not financially advise Christmas, but emotionally I might, right? I would have bias to want to see those things. But long term, if it was going to affect your finances for the rest of the year, and that's really how you have to think of it. The taxpayer is making this choice, not us. We have a bunch of adults in that audience, and they are asking the finance committee, what is the financial aspect? And they're asking the schools, what is the students aspect and the other implication and possibilities of Hanson? But we need to give them a financial outlook on it, and they make adult decisions by themselves. I am going to make a biased adult decision separate than this, but I cannot advise this financially going forward. Whitman can't afford. Let's have a conversation about what that is. Does anybody understand what a combined yield effort? It was the question I asked him, to Mr. Tuffy. It is the way the state determines how much a town can afford. We should all know that Whitman is well above their combined yield effort, and Hanson is very much below. Under the new laws and changes in the laws, Hanson, if separated, if paying this amount, would not legally meet their obligation to schools, and Whitman would be over $1 million more. So I want people to understand what does it mean to afford. There are numbers that are associated with that. There is math that is associated with that. And none of that has come forward, and I don't feel that was honest to the citizens of Whitman. I really am upset about that. I think people know that. But the fact of the matter is I'm going to use that math and give them the numbers and the financial, because next year and the year after and the year after, we have to educate children, and they have to trust us for the financial. I believe that they will make good decisions, but they need the math and they need the people to run those numbers and look at it. I think we can have those honest conversations on the floor, John. This could impact this demographic very badly, even though it's not the best financial choice. Because we also have to tell them, you're probably going to have to absorb that into next year's override. You're going to have to be honest with these people, because they need people to, that's what they're trusting us to do. I think that it comes down to two things. It comes down to telling the adults the truth about the finances and saying, we as adults can absorb this financially, or we can have children absorb it. But these are the financial facts, just as Kathy is laying them out. Financially, this is unsound, but we cannot have children absorb it. That's something we can put on the floor, but our recommendations must be financial. That's all.
All right, so one of the other points here is that if we vote the number as was motioned, we are going to remove the Finance Committee's recommendation. That would result in a debate on the floor. Like I said, that's why I'm asking this committee whether they're still committed to ensuring that the town moves forward with a commitment to support just the statutory method moving forward. So it really is how this vote comes down, what number you want to plug into line 175. So is there any further discussion? All right, we'll go to a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Al?
No.
Ralph?
Yes.
Chuck?
No.
And I vote no. So the
I vote no as well.
Rosemary.
Rosemary, go ahead.
I
All right.
vote no.
Okay.
No to our recommendation for long-term finances and the finances of the town.
Okay, so a 4-4 vote means we have no recommendation for that. We have no clear vote for that recommendation. So I will open the floor to an additional recommendation for line 175.
I'll motion that 175 read 14,796,475.
We have a motion for $14,796,475. Do we have a second?
A second.
And a second. Further discussion? John?
No.
Kathleen?
No.
Dave?
No.
Al?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So line 175 will read $14,796,475.
Okay.
Do we have a recommendation for line 178? Kathleen?
I will move the $401,177 figure.
Okay, do we have a second?
Chuck will second.
Okay, Chuck second. Discussion. Okay, we'll move the roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
All right, I'm going to stop the share, so your screen's probably going to jump.
My screen jumped. I don't see anything.
Click on the icon or something. Your PC.
Click the zoom on the bottom, Rick.
Got it. Thank you.
You're in the headlight.
Now you have that concerned look on my face again.
Yeah.
We've seen it before.
Hey, tell it, it's the same answer every time, too.
Oh, I'll never get in the 21st century. All right, so that moves us to the town meeting warrant. And
so I
suggest that we take up Article 6.
All right, hold on. Let me put that back up. Sorry. The same document.
So while John's putting that up, I'll read it. To see if the town will accept sections 3 to 7 inclusive of Chapter 44B of the general laws, otherwise known as Massachusetts Community Preservation Act, by approving a surcharge on real property for the purposes permitted by said act, that the amount of such surcharge on real property shall be 1% of the annual real estate tax levy against real property commencing in fiscal year 2021, and that the town hereby accepts the following exemptions from such surcharge permitted under Section 3E of said act. Property owned and occupied as a town as defined in Section 2 of the said act, and $100,000 of the value of each taxable parcel of residential real property. The purpose of the act is for the acquisition, preservation, rehabilitation, and restoration of historic resources, the acquisition, creation, preservation, rehabilitation, and restoration of land for recreational use, the acquisition, creation, preservation, and support of community housing, and the rehabilitation and restoration of such open space and community housing that is acquired or created as provided under said act, to determine whether the town will accept any of the exemptions from the surcharge permitted under Section 3E of said act, or take any other action relative thereto. So there is an amendment, Amendment 2. And if we want to scroll to that, John, it should be in this latest budget document.
It just changes the effective year to 2022.
Right.
Okay. All right, well, I'm just going to go back then.
So that amendment will be presented on town hall floor, just to change the date due to the late date of town meeting, I would assume, right, Frank?
Correct. This originally was going to be passed in 2020.
Oh, we missed the key dates. So we had a spirited discussion on this at a last meeting. We did table it to get some more information. Lisa Green did provide additional information in a substantial email that she provided to me and I forwarded to the committee. Does anybody have any questions for Lisa regarding this article? Al.
Hey, Lisa, how are you?
Hi,
Now,
Al.
who's paying the 1%? I didn't read the whole details. Who's paying the 1%? Is it the buyer or the seller?
Well, the 1% comes out of the real estate property levy. So every homeowner.
The seller.
I'm sorry?
The seller is paying it.
What's that?
Oh, you mean from the registry?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, any real estate transaction that takes effect, the real estate charges fees on every single real estate transaction.
So,
And all of that, those real estate fees go into the Community Preservation Trust Fund.
so it's obviously, it depends, it's negotiated when you're selling the house or the property, correct? They're gonna be well notified if they're buying, if you're selling the home, it's gotta be upfront because people have to look for mortgages, correct? It's gonna be built into their cost?
You know, the registry handles all of that. It's been pretty much informed to buyers and sellers. The whole state, the registry of deeds, the entire state collects fees on every single real estate transaction.
Except, is it town by town, I would imagine, right?
No, all of the money, the pool of money from the real estate transactions go into the state trust fund.
Okay.
What we have been privileged to get is a breakdown of the registry of deeds in Plymouth of what they've collected for each town real estate transactions. But all of that money goes into the same trust fund for the pool.
So why is there a 1% tax? Why are we looking for it if the state started collecting it?
No, well, because we cannot access any of that money.
Why is
The
that?
Community Preservation Act has to be adopted by the community.
Okay.
And you're actually mingling two different things.
Right.
The 1% is for the Whitman property owners. That goes into the Whitman established Community Preservation Fund. That stays all in Whitman, all that money.
But what I'm saying though, Lisa, is that we, obviously, if you're buying and selling a Whitman, you have to pay into that, correct?
I jump in?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, but the 1% is our annual tax bills will go up by 1%, except the first $100,000 of our home value is excluded.
No, basically the whole tax bill doesn't go up 1%. It's 1% on the, say if your property tax bill is $4,500, okay? That's after the assessed value minus 100,000. So if your home is assessed at $350, they minus 100,000.
Yeah.
So you now have assessed value of $250.
Yeah.
They take the 1538 tax on that assessed value. Okay, so then say that, I mean, I don't have numbers in my head. I'm not that good. So say if that brings it down to $4,100, 1% is $41 of that tax figure. $41 annually. Broken up, we pay our taxes 4 times a year. It's $41 for the whole year. So basically, it would be $10.25 on each
quarterly bill.
Tax bill.
Quarterly bill. A tax.
And anybody who purchases a home in any community that has adopted and collects the surcharge for Community Preservation Act pay into that. And the whole idea behind this is to preserve your community, the vitality of the community, your quality of life. I mean, and here in the Whitman, we have a pool, we have a playground, we have a very large park. Community preservation funds pay to preserve those, repair them, refurbish them. Community Preservation Act also for the Housing Authority. Yes.
No, you just bring up the, obviously recreation. It should be self-sufficient itself. Do we have any examples from other communities locally, like Abington or Rockland, that use it? And I want to see, do you have specifics though, that how much money that they've made and what they've done with the money?
That in the information that I sent to Rick. Brockton actually doesn't, has not adopted the Community Preservation Act.
Right.
But the town of Abington, let's see. And this, you know, unfortunately on the website, they don't give information about how much projects were cost. But I did find something for the town of Abington. Let's see. Which actually doesn't seem to be in the email that I sent. If you hold on one second, let me get it because I must be missing. Yep.
Dave, did you have another question while she's looking for that?
Rick, I wanted to just comment because I understand Al's question, and I think I can answer it pretty simply. The Community Preservation Act is two funds. One is the town's, has nothing to do with anything else. So when we send out that tax bill that Lisa talked about before, the total tax bill is going to be $3,076. We're going to take 1% of that, or $30, and we're going to put it in our own account on the books of the town. Then, I think it's every October, Lisa will tell you when, the state calculates how much money it has available for matching, and then we get a percentage of that money added to the account that we established. So each time a document is recorded at the registry relating to the sale of a property,
Right.
a fee is charged, and it's put in the state fund, and then we get a percentage match. And that's completely separate from what we collect from our taxpayers.
No, I get that, Frankie. Thank you for the clarification. But we have people in Whitman that are paying $12,000 to $14,000 a year in taxes, and especially the new developments are going now. The houses are selling for excess for over $600,000. So what's the average on a?
The biggest tax bill I've seen in Whitman, other than a commercial property, is around $700. 15 times.
You got Grove Way in there. You got the new development in Hogg Memorial.
I do.
All right.
It's about $10,900. So
is that the average throughout the town, Frank?
No. The average home in Whitman is 300 and somewhere between 307 and 315. The newer sales are higher. They're typically in the high threes to mid fives. That's what we're seeing right now on property sales. So if you took a $550,000 house, 15.38. The tax bill on that's going to be $6,921, and the fee that would be added to that tax bill would be $69.
That's a
Don't
permanent.
forget the less than 100,000, right?
Right. I took the 100,000 off.
All right. A permanent tax then, correct?
It is a permanent tax, and it's a 1% surcharge on your actual tax bill, less the 100,000 value cushion.
Frank?
Go ahead, Lisa.
Al, I have an answer to your question regarding dollar figures.
Sure.
So the town of Abington, for their community preservation funds, they have performed fencing, walking trails, and landscaping at the price of $75,490 paid by Community Preservation. They have made repairs to their American Legion building located in Abington at a cost of $22,000. They have a playground that they have replaced broken parts to the playground equipment in the amount of $33,328. And they've also done an engineering study for an Island Grove Bridge. It costs $35,000. So that is the amount that Abington has been spending on with their community preservation. Just, a couple of thoughts too. This fund can be used in a number of different ways to preserve our community. Like I said, our housing authority, which houses our seniors, disabled, veterans, they would be able to use some of this money to perform upgrades, repairs to those facilities. We have a landfill in Whitman that is not capped properly. Should the state come in one day and tell us you need to spend money to cap this properly, we would be able to use community preservation funds to do that, and wouldn't be stressing over how we're going to come up with the money for this.
Just a quick
Dave,
question. Quick
Al,
question, though.
Al, hold on. Dave's
Oh,
got a
sorry.
question.
Sorry.
Lisa, if this were to pass and the committee was established, would that, and funds were when encumbering funds for projects, would that be through approval of town meeting or not through approval of town meeting?
Well, it's the Community Preservation Committee would review projects and make recommendations similar to the Finance Committee and those would be needed to be approved at town meeting.
Thank you.
That was my
I think
question,
the other
Lisa,
point
that's
too
all.
was with regard to the capital committee too. So I think that committee would work in conjunction with the capital expenditure committee as well to identify projects.
Right. As I noted, there would be minimal cooperation because a lot of Community Preservation Act funds, they don't really fall under capital. And it's a lot of times the two committees would work together on some projects that would be along the matrix, but a lot of the projects on the matrix that we generated in the Community Improvement Program document don't fall under Community Preservation Act projects.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Lisa? Chuck.
Do you have the potential of seeing more than that 1% back from them? There is the potential of doing this and the community seeing they're matching it. So we'll see more than that 1% tax. Is that correct? Is that what I'm reading? We have the potential of seeing that?
Yes, so the funds are matched. Is that what she's asking?
We're matched, correct? So
yeah, yes.
So it's almost like we have the potential of seeing 2% on the dollar. Okay, thank you.
Real quick.
Okay, Chuck had a question first.
Oh, sorry, Chuck.
All right. Yeah, Lisa, this kind of, we were talking about this last week, I think, and I've been a supporter of this, but there was some information out there John had pulled up. It was money that was put in, and the money, the return on it was lower, and that was a little bit of eye-opening. So is it safe to say too, are we too late to the party because there's a lot of towns in there divvying up the money, or?
Well,
I guess,
no, we're never too late. We're never too late. Basically, this year, a lot of the money, again, the real estate market is booming right now. So, if you look at what the Registry of Deeds has placed in the fund so far, from November of 2019 to May of 2020. The total amount that the Registry of Deeds has deposited in the trust fund, the state trust fund, it's $25,849,000. That's so far this year. Last year, 2018 to 2019, November to May, the Registry of Deeds deposited $12,781,000. So far this year, you can see that the real estate is actually booming. They've surpassed last year by 13 million already. So who knows what June, July, August, September, and October are going to bring. Yeah. But all of 2018 and 2019 fiscal year for the Community Preservation Act Trust Fund, the registry deposited a total of $23,292,000. So we've already surpassed that in 6 months so far this year. And the state, by appropriation, has put on their budget up to $20 million to deposit into that account. So Abington, who put in 1%, they put in $391,496 into their community preservation fund. Any town that put in at least 1% received a 23.9% distribution from the trust fund. So Abington got an additional $93,640 from that state trust fund.
So was that 23% of what they put in, the amount of money they put in as a town?
23.9% distribution from this Community Preservation Trust Fund, the state fund, is what they got. Yes.
So the 1% on the tax surcharge, that's the town's money, no matter what. That stays with the town.
No matter what. Yes.
And all the register, the fees from the registry, the real estate transactions, that's what gets divvied up.
That's right.
Correct?
Real estate and what the state puts into that trust.
And what the state puts in.
That
Okay.
gets divvied up to all towns that pay and at least contribute 1%.
Okay. Because
Go ahead,
I have
Frank.
been a good supporter of it, and I know there's a lot of good stuff in town. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chuck. Frank.
Thank you. I just went on to the DOR to look at this year's distributions. FY20, Abington received $93,600. I'm just looking at nearby towns.
That's for last year, Frank?
That's, yes, for FY20, the year we just closed. They're all over the place. Bourne, I guess they were really active down there, 391,000. Braintree, 183. Bridgewater, 157. And I'll be happy to email the spreadsheet if you'd like to look at it. But it's clear that this year, the contributions from the state went up over the previous year. The high point was 100%. The low point, correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, was 11. It was 11%. So right now they're at, is it 17?
23.9%.
23.
Yep.
So
Frank, I actually have that sheet that from the DOR in the email that I sent to Rick Anderson.
Yeah, the full committee has it, Lisa. Yep.
Yeah,
I
so that
quoted it.
is already included. That I broke out just our neighboring towns of what they stand to get this year and then what they got last year.
Okay, before I go to Dave, just I want to echo Chuck's sentiments. We've been talking about this for a while. I think the economic implications to the taxpayer is pretty minimal for the return. So I agree that this is something we've been talking about and something that's definitely a benefit for the community. Dave.
Oh, sorry.
Dave.
I think the timing on this is all wrong. I mean, we're dealing with so many people out of work right now, receiving financial assistance through state and federal government, and then now we're asking them to essentially raise their taxes. I think the timing of this is all wrong.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Rosemary, did you have something?
Yeah, I did. So we're saying raise your taxes. You're definitely going to get that money back. So the pool cover that we bought, that we paid for, that would have been covered. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So
it would.
We're going to spend this money anyway, essentially. But we have a way. Lisa's offering us a way to get $60 for the 30, and at a minimal 11% more than the 30%. To me, that's the best value. It's like getting a coupon for them. I think this is a good value. And I know the word tax scares people, but sometimes, I don't know if anybody's ever, shopped the deals at job lots. Sometimes you buy something to get the free bucks or something. There's a value here.
A good point, Rosemary. We like that town pool cover. We were going to spend it anyways. We fix things all the time. We spend a lot of money.
That's right.
All right, Al, did you have something else you wanted to add?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions regarding this particular article?
Rick, if I could just jump in.
Go ahead, Dave.
Take that example into account. Imagine if we did have this in effect when we needed that town pool cover. Then the recreation director would have to go to to that committee, petition that committee. That committee could decide yay or nay, and then if it was a yay, it would have to go to town meeting. In the way it was handled this year was yes, you went to the finance committee for a budget transfer, and essentially it was done within a week. I think where creation of this committee is going to overcomplicate projects that need to be done throughout this community. And again, I think the timing is all wrong.
Well, I mean, projects of this that fit into the Community Preservation Act normally wouldn't even come up. I mean, the Housing Authority, when they have to perform repairs or upgrades, they would just take care of that on their own, but they could come to the Community Preservation Committee, submit an application for funds, and get more money than they would have to perform even more repairs. And the pool cover, there was a need for that pool cover a lot prior to when it actually had to be done. And that could have been taken care of long before we had to spend $8,000 for it, because it had to be done last minute. But we had the CPC and
So Lisa, so Dave's concern was it might have to wait to town meeting, so that's not correct. It could be, the funds could be petitioned, or they could be accessed not well before town meeting, correct?
Yes, but I mean, then again, if we have to pay out from a different fund, then when town meeting goes and approves the Community Preservation Act funds, you could pay whatever fund back that we used it for.
Oh.
Can we be clear here? The funds being, if this committee were to be established, the funds established by this amendment would or would not require a vote of town meeting?
Yes, they would.
So I don't get it. So if it's like my example, they would have, so if they wanted a pool cover, they would have to wait for town meeting.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Okay, I'm a little confused by that. So could we have transferred it with reimbursement to that with this? It can't reimburse. Is that correct?
We could have put in a request for reimbursement. That would be up to the committee and town meeting.
Okay.
But if we had the Community Preservation Act funds in Whitman, we would have been able to purchase a pool cover way before it was absolutely needed, and not have to spend $8,000 because we needed to do it last minute right away.
So the value comes with preparation, essentially. You've got to.
Yeah,
I do.
Right, restoration.
I think the pool cover is probably not the best example.
Yeah,
could be used.
Right, not the best example.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yes, go ahead, Al.
The pool cover was up over $9,000 for the pool cover. And as far as the whoever took the pool cover off of the spring should have known about it, what, 8 months before we needed to go to that level.
There's no doubt about that, Al. Yeah.
Let's move on with the pool. As far as you talk about the housing authority, they could use the money. Housing authorities, elected officials, which can get the money from the state and federal government on their own. So, do we have someone that's actually responsible? Maybe might be a Lisa question or a Frank question. Who's going to distribute? Say we get the first year we get $100,000 in the account. Who's going to be able to appropriate that money to go where?
The treasurer collector is the custodian of the fund.
So she can tell you where that money goes to, right?
Yes.
Not the taxpayer, right?
No, you can't.
No, the money has to be spent through appropriation.
Right.
The CPA can prioritize and say, we want to support this project or that project, but it has to be voted at town meeting to spend it. The treasurer can only spend what's appropriated. So the treasurer doesn't really have a say in it as a final decision. The decision is made by the Community Preservation Committee,
right,
and acted on at town meeting.
Now, Frank, who's compromised that? Who's on that committee? Who's
Well,
the?
There's a list of people that would be appointed
By whom?
based on positions.
Right. So
It's
the
by
people that
statute.
are on the committee are going to be, it's a member of the Conservation Commission, a member of the Planning Board, Historical Board, Housing Authority. Those are members, those are folks that would be on the committee. And then those folks would appoint at-large members, which could be residents, some business owners, just anybody who would be interested in being a part of the committee.
Just quickly, to David's point, I do have some concerns about how these, they're going to match our percentage. We're not talking about the total project, are we? Right? So we can use, are they talking about they're paying for the total project with this 1% or a percentage of a project? Say a project.
It depends on the level of the project. I'm going to give you an example. The town of Plymouth accepted the Community Preservation Act. They spent $35 million renovating the Plymouth Town Hall. $6 million came out of the Community Preservation Act to support that renovation. And now every year the meals tax pays the debt. So there's a combination of revenue sources that all were transparent to the taxpayer,
Okay.
except for appropriation.
So this is where it gets fuzzy for me.
Right.
And it goes into you know, our long-term plan and having and the matrix. And when it does fall outside of, when we're funding it with other sources, it falls out. How accountable is this other committee to the matrix? And how can we have those work together so that it's not diverting money from our long-term plan, but it is establishing those other projects or things that we have to do?
Well, a lot of the projects that are in our matrix don't fall under Community Preservation Act funds. As I noted in my email, you cannot use it for any type of school capital unless it's a Whitman school and it has to do with athletic fields or open space. You can't use CPA funds for water or sewer preservation or repairs. You cannot use it for a new building or vehicle purchases. Basically, you'd use it for our town fields, our mixed-use fields. You use it for open space, historic building preservation, historic documents. Right now, our town clerk is spending almost $8,000 to $11,000 to microfiche historical documents in the clerk's office.
Okay.
That type of project would be paid for and eligible under Community Preservation Act funds that the town has.
So we could reduce a budget by supplementing it with this, or we could not, I'm not saying to reduce a budget per se, but I'm saying that we could work this into our long-term plan, essentially.
Yeah, you could reduce certain tax expenditures by utilizing those available funds.
Okay, as long as this works into our long-term plan and we're able to do this, I think this is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments that anybody from the Finance Committee would like to make regarding the article?
Rick, if I could jump in?
Go ahead.
We talked about one of the exemptions, the $100,000. We didn't touch on the other exemption, the low income or moderate income for seniors. I just wanted to point out that that would be one of the benefits of this, is that it is not taxed on everyone. It's only taxed on those who make above certain thresholds. For any home in town occupied by at least one person over 60, if two people are in the house and the income is under $76,000 in Whitman, this tax wouldn't be assessed. For a four-person household with one member over 60, it's $95,000. So there are other reasons why we would want to look at something like this as opposed to just raising taxes.
How do we have to inform the taxpayers of this, or how do we?
Yeah, they would have to apply for exemption.
Okay, so
through the assessor's office.
I would make a real point to put out to our community members before I do that they have this opportunity, so that it isn't anybody that it is burdening, as two of our committee members have mentioned, have an opportunity to handle that, so that it doesn't have those negative effects, but it does have all the positives.
Okay, all right. Thank you all for your comments. Are we ready to move on the roll call? Seeing nothing further. Justin, just for the future, I don't know if anybody else had a hard time hearing you. You're maybe a little far from your mic, but I believe we heard everything you said. That's all. Just wanted to let you know that. Okay, so we're going to go around the table. John?
No.
Dave?
No.
Al?
Absolutely not. Tax.
Hold on.
Rosemary?
Wait. No one made a motion.
Oh.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. I'll entertain a motion to accept Article 6.
Chuck will make the motion. Rosemary seconded it.
Okay, Chuck made the motion and Rosemary seconded it. Thank you, Samantha. Back to John.
No.
Dave?
No.
Al, we heard you. Rosemary?
Yes.
Ralph?
No.
Chuck?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
And I vote yes. I have absolutely no idea what the total is.
4-4.
4.
Okay, 4-4.
It's the recommendation.
All right, that will be our recommendation for Article 6. Article 8.
Not 7.
7, we've already voted.
Okay.
Article 8 says to see if the town will vote to appropriate.
We voted Article 8.
Article 8. My copy says Finance Committee will make a recommendation on the floor of town meeting on the copy of the warrant that I have.
Voted that a long time ago.
This was just printed today.
That was original. We had passed it over, and then didn't we have we had the chief come in, didn't we?
We voted that.
We
voted that a long time
We
ago.
came to the buildings capital committee, and then I relayed that information to this committee, and I believe we voted on it.
Yeah, because I believe so too. I thought we just had the CPA left.
Okay, so I guess I got to make sure this is the right one. So this is about transferring 640 from reserve for appropriation ambulance receipts to reduce the amount of money to be raised for taxation. Is that the same article? Frank, are we talking about article number 8?
Article 8. I have, my last update was Finance Committee will make recommendation on the floor of town meeting.
I do not recall voting this article. Article 8 may have been some other Article 8 back when we voted previously. The previous Article 8 was withdrawn. So this is actually a different Article 8 from when we voted the majority of our...
That's correct. This was the balancing article after we made the determination.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So I'm going to read it again, and then I'm going to look for a recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay. To see if the town will vote to appropriate $640,302 from the fiscal 2020 Reserve for Appropriation Ambulance Receipt Account, and to appropriate $133,702 from available free cash, said funds to be used to reduce the amount of money to be raised by taxation for the fiscal year 2021, or take any other actions relative thereto. Do we have a motion?
I make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Seconded by Chuck. Okay, discussion. Does anybody have any questions regarding this particular?
I apologize. I was confused on what this was.
No worries.
Well, you know what, John? This has been going on quite a long time.
Yes. And it'll go on for a while longer too, so.
No worries
We have a
there.
motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to the roll call. John?
Yes.
Dave?
I'm abstaining from this. Abstaining.
Al?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So we have a 7-1-0. 701.
701.
701. Okay, and now for the final 4 articles regarding the articles related to collective bargaining. You scroll through, John, to okay, article. I believe we voted one of these.
Yeah. We voted 29, I believe.
Firefighters.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. 29. Okay, we voted unanimously to recommend Article 29. Article 30, see if the town will vote to approve a 1-year collective bargaining agreement between the town and the Whitman Public Library employees, SEIU Local 888, and to appropriate a sum of money from free cash to fund the cost items of the collective bargaining agreement. And the amendment number 8, and the dollar figure is?
It's right in your amended. Let's see, where are the amendments?
Wait a minute, here we go. What is that, 30?
Yes,
30.
There it is. 4,216.
Okay.
Kathleen will move that amount.
I second it.
Kevin
I
and
second it.
John seconds. Discussion. Okay, seeing none, we'll move to vote. John?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
And I vote yes, 8-0. Okay, Article 31. To see if the town will vote to appropriate a one-year collective bargaining agreement between the town and the Whitman Police Association, IBPO, Local 609, and to appropriate a sum of money from free cash to fund the cost items of the collective bargaining agreement or take any other action relative thereto. And the amended amount is?
$50,420.
Do we have a motion?
I
Kathleen
motion.
will move Article 31.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Article 31 as written. Further discussion? Roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, 8-0. Article 32. To see if the town will vote to appropriate a one-year collective bargaining agreement between the town and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, State Council 93, Local 1700, and to appropriate a sum of money from free cash to fund the cost items of the collective bargaining agreement, take any other action relative thereto.
$11,580.
And that is the amount.
Kathleen will move Article 32.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Article 32 as amended. Discussion. John?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. And Article 33. See if the town will vote to approve a one-year collective bargaining agreement between the town and Office and Professional Employees International Union, Local 6, AFL-CIO, and to appropriate a sum of money to fund the cost items of the collective bargaining agreement or take any other action relative thereto. And the amount is?
$28,309.
Okay.
Kathleen moves Article 33.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. And discussion. Seeing none, move the roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And the final one for Article 34, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $219,320. Oh, Article 34, we already voted. So Article 33 was the last one for collective bargaining, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we have already voted Article 34. That was in regard to the cable access account. So I believe that exhausts all of our recommendations that need to be incorporated into the printed warrant. Frank, do you find any that are missing?
No, I think we're all set.
Okay. We did have a discussion regarding funding sources and the warrant article regarding the feasibility study. Frank, is this just something that we need to talk about, or do you think it's not going to be something that needs to be amended on town hall floor?
Well, I believe when we had our last discussion, you felt that you wanted to use free cash rather than borrow. If we make that change, we would essentially be wiping out all of the free cash that we would normally carry forward from one year to another. and rating agencies look very jaundicedly at that.
So the thought was to perhaps reconsider the funding source based on available funds, really having not a lot of direction for how town meeting's going to vote on the other articles. If in fact there was a sum of money that was left on the table, whether it would have been wiser to take out of free cash the money for the feasibility study instead of going to bond. But
and bear in mind, if things go a different way, there is still the opportunity to act on what would then be available funds.
okay, so I think it's something for the committee to keep in mind. If in fact town meeting votes in a way that would allocate additional resources for us to consider an alternate funding source for that particular article. John.
When we had this discussion before, one of the things that we need to remember is that if the school budget does not pass and we remain on a 1/12 and it goes all the way to December 1st and DESI comes in and sets a new budget, we have to make sure we consider what possibly DESI could set as a budget. It'll definitely be higher than what the 1/12 is now. So, you know, without having the crystal ball, as we talked about, we don't know what could happen there. So we have to keep that open in mind. So for us to move on town hall floor or town hall baseball field, based on the vote on Monday, we really don't know what could happen after that. So I just caution, I guess.
Yeah. I don't think we'd take any recommendations at that point.
The other thing I would just remind you is that the decisions we make on July 27th begin our fiscal year for 2021. There are opportunities later in the year when balances are certified to look at other options. One of the things that we're doing, if we vote the way the article is presented today, is we're borrowing money on a band. It's basically, it's a bond anticipation note. It's a one-year note. We can pay it off by using other funds. We can simply pay the interest and continue, or we could actually treat it as part of the building project and roll the interest into the next advance and into the next advance until you fully bond the project. So we're not locking ourselves permanently into one option. And I'm more concerned about having available funds if they're needed, because if we have to call for a special town meeting and we don't have any free cash, there's only one place we can go for it.
Okay, good point. All right, anybody else?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I think that the whole conversation came up, and Frank wasn't here for this, so to fill him up, was that we wanted, at least when I mentioned it, I wanted to ensure that any money that we kept on the Madden recommendations at the 5.5 per school, and we kept rolling that forward at that rate, that we didn't roll it forward at this lower rate if it was not accepted. I completely like what John's saying, that we have to also consider that it may be, we have to be prepared if the state comes in and they say the kids need this amount under this, and that amount shoots up. We have to be prepared for that. But I also had wondered if there was a way to do a contingency. If one thing happened, we could do some sort of contingency vote. That's all. But keep that money within a school project.
Okay, thank you, Rosemary. Anybody else? Anything to do with the warrant as it's prepared, and our recommendations that are contained therein, I guess, are going to be printed as we voted tonight. Frank, anything else we're missing from Article 2?
I'm sure there's something and we won't find it until Monday night.
And that happens. Yeah, we'll deal with it at that point for sure. So We are posted for 5:30, so should something come up from now till then, you can certainly let me know. We'll get it to the committee and put it on the agenda for half hour.
I do intend to update the final, do a final update on the warrant and then regenerate the documents both for the web and to be printed. And as part of that, we will go line by line through the warrant and Article 2 to make sure that there are no
typos,
no misses or miscalculations. One of the weird things that happened, and Dave, I can't think of his last name, chairman of the finance committee.
Mincello?
Are
you talking about the past Whitman Finance Committee chair?
Yes, Dave Jablonski.
Oh.
Dave used a spreadsheet and he used math calculations. So there were hidden decimals all over the sheet. And when we voted
I remember.
All of the budgets, the next day the clerk was pulling a hair out because they didn't add up. And we had under-appropriated by, I think, $21 by virtue of all of those fractional dollars, which is why Article 2 is always whole dollars only.
Makes sense, yeah. All right, so I believe we have exhausted most of the items. New business item, subcommittee appointment. I did get a communication forwarded from Frank regarding appointment to the school building committee. The Board of Selectmen did vote to appoint members from the selectmen.
Thank you for bringing that up. The board didn't actually vote to appoint. The board voted to present a slate of persons to serve. Rick and I talked about this, and I will tell you, I was remiss in not first reaching out to the Finance Committee once Mr. Galvin expressed his interest in being on that committee, so that we had the benefit of your input as well as the board's.
Okay, so I don't think the committee has exception to who. It's just a process, and we accept the fact that in the future, I believe we need to make it clear to the school, the district, to make sure that they forward communications to the finance committees as well, and that way we can have timely communications too. So, but again, congratulations to John for his appointment on that building committee for the new middle school. I'm sure you'll represent the finance committee well in your position. So.
Yes, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Cheers, John.
All right, so that moves us to the final other business. Anybody have anything else for the committee in advance of town meeting? Frank, we do have I did speak with the moderator regarding the handout that the finance committee approved. If you can see that that's printed and provided.
It will be part of the town meeting.
Excellent. All right, we appreciate that very much. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Kathleen moves to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, going around the board. John.
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
Rosemary.
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
Chuck.
That's a yes.
Kathleen.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you all for your patience. It's a very difficult